gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to give the last talk of the 2022 Health Data Forum. I'm sure it's a great relief for you as well. Yesterday, when I was planning my remarks, I was going to talk about data quality, and then somebody last night made a remark at the reception that made me change my mind. So I rewrote my comments this morning. At the end of 2023, we're hopefully coming out of a pandemic where in the first 2 years, excess mortality was almost 15 million people. Not all of those 15 million people died of COVID, but many died indirectly owing to the overwhelmed health services around the world. And were it not for the extraordinary kind of scientific developments and scientific progress made over recent decades, without the rapid development and rollout of vaccines, that death count could have been much, much higher. But the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. In October 22 alone, in other words, last month, over 50,000 COVID deaths were reported to WHO, and we await with trepidation the coming winter. But even though the pandemic is not over, the public health officials are already turning their attention to the future. COVID-19 has naturally provoked a desire to be better prepared for future emergencies. And this in turn has triggered a global pandemic preparedness program. In this age of quantification, the solution in the minds of many is to develop a dashboard or another set of indicators. But there's a saying among soldiers that generals always fight the last battle. And I worry that we're guilty of doing the same thing. By building dashboards, we're preparing to fight the last pandemic. We're preparing to fight the last health emergency. We don't know what the next health emergency will be, but we can be reasonably certain it's not what we expect today. We can be reasonably certain that it will surprise any dashboard that we construct. Now, dashboards and indicators can play a hugely important role in transmitting key messages. So my key point really is to consider the limitations. We should not put all of our faith in dashboards. I think that really is the road to ruin. Statistics play a dual role. They not only measure reality, but they also shape or define reality. A dashboard will measure reality, but it will also define it. As an aside, after the SDG indicators were selected, there was some quite heavy criticism that the SDG indicators were reductionist. And this struck me as a rather odd criticism at the time, as statistics are by definition reductionist. In fact, that's their purpose. Their purpose is to distill the complexities of life into a set of metrics that help us to understand patterns and associations. Thus, a dashboard may prepare us against future emergencies, but the risk is that they may also blinker us against unexpected emergencies. They may give us a false sense of security. If dashboards told us everything that we needed to know, we wouldn't have road accidents today. So we spent the last 3 days discussing data quality. We're all collectively concerned about data quality because we want to ensure that we're producing accurate research, good quality, robust statistical products. We understand that poor quality may lead to poor decisions and ultimately to poor outcomes. But in this age of measurement, in this age of quantification, where Drucker-esque phrases like what cannot be measured, cannot be managed, these are pronounced as self-evident truths, where anything that's unmetrified cannot be trusted. But anything that is quantified is regarded as empirical or objective. I also think we have a responsibility not only to think about the quality of our data, but also to think about how we convey the messages around that data. How do we convey uncertainty? How do we communicate the limitations of data and statistics so that decision makers understand that they cannot delegate their responsibilities to a dashboard? And my reflections lead me to conclude that there's no shortcut for analytical capacity. What we need to foster and encourage is creative analytical capacity. Before finishing, I'd like to give, I have one further reflection When I began work as a statistician in the early 1990s, it was understood our mission was to provide information that would inform decision makers. And I stress the word inform. It was understood that decision makers would weigh the evidence, but they would take into consideration other factors, be they political, cultural, and so forth. So in other words, evidence was one part of a complex equation that leads to a decision. But since then, the phrase has morphed into data-driven decisions. To my mind, this is a completely different animal. Data-driven, to me at least, implies that data are making the decisions, not just informing them. Taking this to its logical conclusion, data-driven decision-making removes accountability from politics. After all, the politician has no choice because the data made the decision. And to an extent, this is true in what's happening today with artificial intelligence and machine learning. But I think this shift in language is noteworthy, and I think it's something we should pay more attention to. So I would like to conclude with a quote from one of my favorite books, a book called The Tyranny of Quantification by Jerry Muller. And he reminds us that measurement is not an alternative to judgment. Measurement demands judgment. Thank you.